This video is called Don't Give the Ego Ammunition. This is the reason why you shouldn't argue with anyone. Essentially, what happens is relationship dynamics, and this is a deep one. This is an important one. Relationships are the most important things. Why am I out of breath? Let me just take a moment. So relationships are among the most important things you experience in the human game. What happens is we all have an ego, and when that ego gets triggered, and the ego is synonymous for this delusional state that we think we are a separate person and we can be triggered or devalued in any way. That's the story of the ego. So when you go into conflict with others, or they talk bad about you behind your back, what happens is that the ego is fighting the other ego. That's all. They are fighting for superiority. And when you're aware and you don't care about egos, it becomes very confusing, because anything the person does is not measured anymore in hierarchy or in that delusional state that you have to prove yourself to the world to be of value, because we have inherent value. Even if you're just a plant not doing anything, we have inherent value. This is confusing to the ego because you've been programmed to perform like a monkey in order to be valuable to society. So this is a programming thing from the Matrix, as it were. As a consequence, what may happen after your level of awareness is higher now, you see all the delusional egos running around in the world. The ego identifies with forms, with shapes, including houses, cars, status, partnerships, relationships, just things and even thoughts and emotions, and they are completely trapped by this illusion. In order to get free from this delusional state is to stop feeling like you're worthless, because it's simply not true. You don't have to compete anymore with other egos, because everyone is valuable. Everything is self. Everything is divine. So why the competing? Why the fighting? What most people realize is they are not being attacked. You cannot really hurt a person with words. It's all very basic actually here. The human game is very basic. So when you think you are being attacked by words, if you're offended, it means your ego is active, because who can ever offend you? The truth stands for itself and doesn't need to be defended. So all the arguing is purely an egoic mechanism that is actually destroying your own life. Because when you are in your power and you have inherent worth, you don't have to prove yourself or your worth to anyone or anything in existence, because you simply exist and therefore you have infinite value. When there is some residue of ego residing within yourself, you will create people in your world that's gonna trigger that ego, that's gonna trigger your sense of self-worth. Are you sure that you are worthy? Are you sure? Are you sure? Yes, of course I'm sure. I'm a creation just like anyone else. The thing humanity needs to realize is that we have inherent worth, and it's always been like that. And the paradox is, when we do not realize our inherent worthiness or value, we shift to the opposite, which is an unworthy narcissistic individual, which we then act out. So we become a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we don't claim our self-worth, our self-love, things are going to happen, okay? When the ego starts to get angry because there's an injury being inflicted onto it, someone is challenging their status or their hierarchical level or their sense of self-worth, then mayhem is going to happen, because the ego will attack, the ego will retaliate, and it's going to be very, very ugly. And we all have this ego in varying degrees. So when you are having an attack on your ego and you feel so offended by someone devaluing you, it means that the ego in you is reactive to that. And then you have people that want to attack the other person for offending their ego, and they're becoming scared. So the ego is fear. It's synonymous with fear and devaluation. The fear of being unworthy of existence. That's the core thing that's going on here. So the only salvation there actually is to know thyself, which means knowing you are worthy no matter what. Knowing you are a worthiness in itself because you exist. And you don't need to perform to any monkeys. You don't need to perform like some circus animal to prove yourself to other egos. And who is not in their ego nowadays? The ego is a false structure that needs to die. That's why I keep telling you about ego death. The ego death is extremely painful because you realize that you have been in this delusional state of victimhood all this time, and you realize that you weren't able to overcome that, so then you feel the shame and the guilt, which is also ego. So the ego weaponizes its own destruction to yourself. The ego weaponizes any transcendence of it and actually punishes you for becoming more aware. You think, oh, who do you think you are, feeling worthy all of a sudden? Who do you think you are? You are just like the rest of the people. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are for being awakened and having self-love and valuing yourself just as you are? Who do you think you are? That's what all the people, aka egos, around you are going to project onto you massively. They are going to do that, and I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. It's just going to happen because you are face to face with the destruction of your own egoic tendencies. You are face to face to go into the triggers that you being offended is you being in the ego and you being in a disempowered state. The only truth there is that you are worthy. It's very simple, isn't it? All the pathological disorders leave your body. All the overthinking, the neuroticism, because when no ego, no person outside can trigger you, and when you have no need for external validation anymore, what's there to do? Honestly, what do you need to fix in yourself? You're not broken, there's nothing wrong, you're already whole and complete. What's there to do? So this is just pure logic. It's logic. And knowing the way reality works is that life and reality is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's an echo chamber. When you don't trust life, life will show you reasons not to trust it. When you think you are unworthy or not good enough, life will put you in situations and people that will tell you you are unworthy. But the funny thing is you can turn this around any moment, because every moment is a blank slate. And you can decide who you are right now. You can just say, okay, you know what? I don't believe in all that anymore. Now, I'm a new person. I'm an aware person. I know myself now. And I'm gonna do this, this and this. Whatever you want. And you don't need external validation or anyone to tell you how worthy you are, how pretty you are, how smart you are. That's all bullshit. That's all ego gratification. We don't need that. Because we self-validate. We are self-love abundant. I don't need anyone to tell me anymore, whoa, you're so... No, I don't care. Because I know myself, and this is how you get out of the egoic structures of delusion. Because the ego is delusional, and as you may have noticed, the real world is run by egos that try to be right all the time, which makes you argue with them. Arguing is a symptom of egoism. That's all. So you also don't, these flies, you also stop attracting egos in your world that devalue you because you're not sensitive to their devaluement anymore. You just aren't because you self-validate now. Isn't that wonderful? Right?